Hello and welcome to the Buy, Sell, Hold Spotlight presented by Sports Car Market Magazine. I'm Darren Roberge. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Also be sure to join in the conversation and share your thoughts by leaving us a comment below. Our guest today is Philip Richter. He is owner and founder of Turtle Garage and the Turtle Invitational, as well as president and co-founder of Brook Wealth Management. And he's a board member at the Res Institute and the Prey Foundation. And even once in a while, he's a contributor at Sports Car Market Magazine. Welcome, Philip.
Darren, thank you.
For those who may not know you, please introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background.
So my name is Philip Richter. I'm a very passionate car enthusiast, motorcycle enthusiast, vintage and modern classics. I really owe quite a lot to Keith Martin at Sports Car Market. About 7 years ago, I started writing articles for Sports Car Market, and it's just such a great publication, and it's an honor to be a part of that movement.
So give us a little bit of background on Turtle Garage. What exactly is it? How did it start? From my perspective, it sort of looks like one of those situations when you're like 17 years old and sitting in your bedroom dreaming of how you want your life to turn out, but you kind of actually went ahead and did it. So give us the whole rundown on that.
Yeah, Turtle Garage started at the end of a drill bit in southern Louisiana. The chairman of my firm, Brook Wealth Management, was on the board of a publicly traded energy company, and I became friends with the CEO of that company. And he invited me to participate as a working interest partner in an oil and gas project they were drilling in southern Louisiana. And, this was a very high risk project. I think it was about a 15 to 18,000 foot vertical well. And these guys really knew how to find oil and gas. They knew what they were doing. And he said, look, just, you're welcome to participate, put a little bit of money in. So I put a little bit of money in, kind of forgot about it. And, one day he called me and he said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm at my office." "Why?" And he says, "Swimming pools and movie stars," which was Louisiana speak for a home run in the oil and gas parlance. And it ended up being, I think, one of the largest onshore natural gas discoveries in Louisiana in history. And that small investment enabled me to start building my garage here in Bedford, New York, Turtle Garage. And the reason it's named Turtle Garage is the said gas well was located in the Turtle Bayou field in southern Louisiana. And so I named the garage after the discovery of Turtle Bayou field.
So what's essentially in the collection? It seems like it's kind of focused in a couple of different directions primarily. So what's the general outline of the collection, and when you started it versus where it is now, has the vision been kind of the same, or is it modified over the years, or kind of give us the rundown of the collection?
Yeah, it's actually been pretty static as far as the targets. I'm hugely passionate about pre-war BMW motorcycles. They are works of art. They're engineering masterpieces. They're actually a beautiful thing that came out of a horrible era. And I love the process of restoring them. I work with a guy out in California, Mike Dunn, Vintage German Imports. He's amazing at what he does. He's an artiste. We've taken these bikes to the extreme of even the internal headlight buckets have the proper wiring, the proper overspray. We have some original bikes in the collection. I'm the second owner of my 1939 R51, came out of England. So the BMW motorcycle thing has always been a theme, as has generally German vehicles. My father emigrated from Germany after the war. And so I've been inculcated with German engineering and German quality. And one of the great things about German anything of that era and even the modern classics is it's all very usable. It's all very reliable. As far as the automobile side, Mercedes-Benz runs very strong. I like modern classic Mercedes from kind of the era, obviously, that we all cherish, which is our late teens, early 20s, high school, college years. So, the 500E, E500 Porsche collaboration's an important car for me. The 16 valve 190E, the E30 type M3 cars. So those types of German cars, Mercedes, BMW, and actually more recently, the last 3 years, Audi. So V12, anything that Mercedes makes, I love. And then on the BMW side, I actually have two BMW cars, an E30 M3 and an E46 M3. I think the M3 embodies what a true German performance car really was. Now the M4 is giant. It's like the size of a limousine. It's a big car. That's not what the M3s were of old, of more analog cars. And then the Audis, the R8 to me, and we'll talk about this later, is just, it might be one of the finest cars ever built in that category. And it's very appreciated for what it is and the unique history behind it with Le Mans and the development money that went into it as a halo car. So those three kind of, Mercedes, BMW M3s, Audi R8s, and then, strangely, I have a little weird habit. I love Jeeps. I love CJ7s. I love CJ3Bs. I have Jeeps, that are really fun. And, that's just sort of a fun hobby. And I do have several Italian motorcycles. Bimota is a brand that I'm a big fan of, and MV Agusta, and Moto Guzzi. So there's some Italian bikes in there as well. There is a Packard too. I recently dove into the pre-war world, and I've always wanted a Packard 12. My dad took me to a small car show when I was 11, and I saw a big, I think it was like a 1929 Phaeton. And I just always wanted a Packard after that. And I finally scratched that itch when the right car came along. I always wait for the right car. I'm very patient about this. And I feel that they come to you if you're patient enough. And the right car, Alfred Vanderbilt's Packard, came my way. And, it's a incredible car to drive, and it's an incredible car to be a part of and around and to be a caretaker of. So that's the only kind of outlier in my collection, is the pre-war Packard 12. Sorry.
Well, you mentioned the right car, and there's quite a few examples of those in the collection. So what is your sort of general criteria that makes the right car? Like, what do you look for when you're out there trying to find something in particular?
Well, I think the first thing is sort of a unique, interesting build story behind the car. So like the SL65 Black Series, really interesting build story behind it. One of the real kind of first earliest cars to be 100% built at AMG and Alfalterbach. That's to me interesting. A lot of carbon fiber use, very different from the actual production SL65, materially different in a lot of ways. And then things like the 500E, which was a Porsche collaboration, never to happen again. This is not going to happen, again. And, kind of the first true four-door Porsche. Then the 16 valve, unbelievable. Mercedes goes and partners with Cosworth to build the head of the 2.3 16. Cars like that are very interesting. And the R8 actually falls into that category given its history with Le Mans. And Quattro GmbH, where they build the R8, is an entirely separate factory from Audi. And these cars, the one thing I will say about the Audi, and no one can deny, the build quality on the R8s is second to none. The paint, the fit and finish, the leather, the interior fittings, the plastics, the leather, all of it, the build quality is out of this world. It truly embodies what German engineering and German production capabilities are what they are. And so cars like that have a bespoke history. I also am a total absolute sucker for flared fenders. So the E30 M3, huge flares, the SL65 Black Series, bombastic flares. The E46 M3 actually has huge flares when you look at it next to a normal E46. And then, of course, the 500E, which is the king of flares. Those types of cars, I think, when they're flared and different than their brethren, plain models like a 300E or a plain E46, really stand out, particularly, an E30, normal E30 next to the M3 E30, you really see it. And so flares are kind of part of a theme that run through Turtle Garage.
Another interesting thing that I noticed when browsing your website, and I invite others to do it the same. It's an interesting way to spend a couple of minutes. Is the presence of arcade games, and I'm starting to see this in more and more collections where maybe traditionally it would have been gas pumps or gas memorabilia. Now we're starting to see, Street Fighter 2, Donkey Kong, so on and so forth. What do you think the draw for arcade games is, number one? And number two, do you think that that's a viable collectible market moving forward that people should be paying attention to right now?
So those are great questions, Darren. It's obviously nostalgia. Obviously, I have pole position here at Turtle Garage. I have pole position in Asteroids, the full standing, units. I actually bought those right after I built Turtle Garage in 2006 when nobody really cared about these games. And, I think they are hugely desirable. Believe it or not, I mean, not to sound, outright silly, but these games are built, like the quality actually, they are made out of press board, but the quality, the weight, the heft, the care and attention to detail, the reliability. I mean, think these things were sitting in arcades with kids like banging their hands on the buttons, and they're bulletproof. And so I think these arcade games are actually, I think I'm money good on mine. I'm pretty sure. And they all function. They work. I did a little home improvement to them, so you don't have to put quarters in. You can just reset the button and do that. I even have a payphone right here, left over from a bygone era. And then, of course, gas pumps. We have some gas pumps too, but they're fun. Arcade games are fun. And it's interesting to see when young kids come to Turtle Garage, they love playing these games. I have a full simulator here, like a modern giant, super sim. They like pole position. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun era for that kind of stuff. I've certainly been down that road before, and they're big, heavy pieces of machinery that have, and a lot of times limited edition, unique artwork on them. And, there's a restoration industry for those as well. So I think that just moves forward and continues to gain steam as we move on down the line here. Another passion of yours that I think is kind of connected maybe a little bit from horsepower to actual horses. You're a big equestrian guy. So did that lead into the car thing, or did it lead out of the car thing, or how are these things related, and what similarities do you see between the two of them?
They're only related in the sense of horses and horsepower. I've been riding horses my whole life since I was age 6, and I compete on the A circuit in what's called the high amateur jumpers, which is kind of a little notch below the Grand Prix level, which is what kind of the Olympics are about. So the jumps are real. The jumps are big. It's a very tough sport. It's very technical. It's actually quite dangerous. For some, it can be dangerous if you make mistakes. So very, very thin margin of safety. You have to be very precise and accurate. And working with an animal is very different than a team sport where animals have bad days. They have good days. They misunderstand commands. You have to be very clear. So the cars, same thing. I had my first Honda 50 when I was 7 years old, and the passion for engines and mechanical things kind of was parallel to the whole horse thing. But there's something really amazing about the fact that, before we had the automobile, we had horses, and they're incredibly intuitive creatures. They know how you feel. They know if you're nervous. They know when you're confident. When you go in the ring to jump a big course. I jumped a very big course last Sunday without a knockdown at a big horse show locally here. And the feeling of accomplishing that it's unmatched by pretty much anything else in life that I experience. And the cars are, they're just an extension of that thrill and that passion. Most of all, I'd say about horses and cars, the best thing about it is all the people that you meet that are like-minded in that sport and in our industry. It's very similar. People are extremely passionate about horses. They spend ridiculous amounts of money on them. So it's like that in the car world. It's identical. People are passionate about cars. We just spend so much money on our hobbies, and not even just money, but time. We all schlep to Pebble Beach, and we go to Greenwich, and we go to Amelia, and we go to auctions, and we burn up time on BAT. The equestrian world's the same thing. Everyone's just obsessed with jumping and horses.
It's good stuff. Definitely. It's all passion. It's all good. Another thing you've been passionate about through the course of your career, which is your career, is your background in the financial world. So how did that shape your approach to collector cars, and what have you noticed with similarities? What similarities exist there, and how can the two complement each other when putting together a portfolio for investing for the future?
Darren, there's a lot to unpack there, and those are all really good questions. I've been interested in investing since I was really little. I always wanted to understand what were all those pages in the back of the newspaper and all these different numbers and what did they mean. And luckily my dad, supported me in helping me learn a little bit about that. And investing is just an incredibly, fascinating thing because you have raw math. It's all, there's just tons of math, number crunching, but there's also the psychology. And sometimes the psychology just drives right over the math, and the math is meaningless and makes no sense. So you really, it's an art. It's truly an art and a science to be a consistent long-term investor. And I think that the parallels, that I've learned working at Hollowbrook with our team, we our mantra at Hollowbrook is to, always put yourself in the client's shoes, and character counts and integrity counts and focus counts, and do the right thing for your clients and do the work, right? Really do the due diligence, because that's where you get tripped up in investing, when you don't know all the facts. And not that the facts are always all knowable, but you should really have a good handle on that. And it's the same in the collector car world. Do the work, know what you want to have in your portfolio and what you don't want to have. So for example, today at Hollowbrook, we have a lot of things we want to have in the portfolio, but we don't want to have certain things like companies with a lot of leverage, right? I don't want leverage in my portfolio. There's too much debt in the world. It's too scary, right? I don't want to have cars in my portfolio that have questionable histories, that have, bad paintwork, that have poor service records, that have unnecessarily high mileage if you want to be safe, because mileage is the metric for many people. I think that's misunderstood. I think there's a lot of high mileage cars that are way better than low mileage cars, but that's a fight for another day. So investing, as we think about it at Hollowbrook, is actually incredibly similar to how I think about my car portfolio and the decisions I've made over the years. It's about quality, and it's about being patient. And sometimes you've got to wait for a stock to come your way, or an opportunity to come your way, or for a car to come your way. And when it does come your way, you have to be ready to transact. For example, the Packard I bought is a very oddball situation. It mathematically made no sense that the seller had put so much money into this car to get it to Pebble Beach to be at that level, but they were on to other projects and they had lots of things going on, and they wanted the car to be in the right hands, and I was right there. And so you need to be ready to transact. When Johnson & Johnson trades down $15 because of some short-term thing that the market doesn't like, and you like the stock at 65 and it's now at 50, you got to buy it, right? And so the car world is very similar. And I think oftentimes it's knowing what you're after, being disciplined, being patient, doing your homework. And then at the moment of truth, when that vehicle comes your way, you have to transact and you can't hesitate. So that would be my kind of parallels between the investing universe and the car universe. And I think there's also a lot of parallels today in the level of markets of equities and automobiles, because we're coming off of a decade of an unbelievable era of, zero interest rates, money printing, quantitative easing, very low energy prices, very benign geopolitical risks, globalization going full throttle. Now we're suddenly in this world of much more expensive money, quantitative easing going to zero or slowing down, energy prices going higher, global conflicts increasing, and globalization going in reverse, which is highly inflationary. So the car world has been very impacted by the Federal Reserves and other central banks around the world, their behavior, their experiment, if you will, over the last 12 years, following the financial crisis. And we see these prices of cars that, I always pick on the Supras, which I think a Supra is a great car. But when that first Supra on Bring a Trailer broke $100,000, I just stopped and said to myself, this is like 1999 in the investment world with snowball.com and pets.com, companies that had no revenues and lots of hype. But now we're seeing similar things in the equity markets. You mentioned AI in your earnings release, and your stock goes up 30, 40%. And we're in this, very interesting mania coming off of very low, abnormally low interest rates that were well below the growth rate of the economy. Now we're going into this higher interest rate, more particularly difficult investing environment with a lot of unknowns, and the car market's adjusting. And I think you're starting to see on the margin a little bit of that rationalization and pricing, and you're seeing it in the stock market. Although today there's about 5 stocks that are basically driving the entire market since January, but that's a different topic.
Well, we've seen similar things in the collector car market too. I mean, if you think about sort of like the 2014 sort of area, Ferrari sales were really driving the market, and those have curved off a little bit, and we're kind of maybe, I think, somewhat looking for the next wave of that, whether that be, a pre-merger AMG Mercedes or McLarens or whatever. But the question is, and one of the big things that people use to sort of justify the collector car expenses and so on in the investment is, well, it beats the market. It's a little bit safer. It's a little bit easier to predict. So A, is that a real thing from your perspective? And B, knowing that or not knowing that, how often do you guys sort of recommend a split strategy involving collector cars and maybe or art or collectibles or whatever to your clients along with things that are in the financial markets?
Yeah, I don't think the argument that cars are safer than equity markets, and people don't remember what happened in the car market in 1989, 90, 91, right? I mean, Daytonas were free. They fell from hundreds of thousands of dollars to being, $65,000 cars very quickly. So the collector car world, I think, is actually fraught with risk in so many ways. The way that you get out of that risk or mitigate that risk is the same way you do it in the investing world. You do your work and you buy quality. That's what you do. So, I think there's very little risk. If you're going to buy an SL65 Black Series today, if you can find a one owner car that has under 3,000 miles, I don't think there's a lot of risk in, paying up for that car. And there's a lot of other cars like that are out there. The problem is when you get in the fringe and you start saying, well, here's one. It had a Carfax incident, but it's this, it's that. It had 6 owners. It's, been handed around, like a marijuana joint at a dead show, but it's still a great car and, all this stuff. So that is very risky. It's like buying a stock that's expensive and has a lot of leverage and has poor management and who's not innovating their product. So you just stay away from that stuff. So I think actually it's not true that the car market is safer than the equity market. And I actually think to compound real long-term wealth, a prudent investment approach that's diversified by asset category is obviously the way to go. We like to say, taking some calculated concentrated risks are a real way to create wealth, but there needs to be multiple ways to win in those scenarios. You have to have a margin of safety. The car world is fascinating because I think, I really do. I think Randy Nonnenberg will go down in history as one of the most important individuals in the collector car world of all time because of what BAT has done. So it's obviously this has been talked about by everybody, but all these eyeballs, all these people, it's the central place to go. There's the trust factor of good sellers that have a good reputation, much like the eBay of old. This is powerful stuff that brings more eyeballs to the car. So you have to be careful when you say cars are overvalued, when you have lots of eyeballs around the world looking at these cars that have the ability to transact and want that car. And also, which is also talked about by a lot of people, sure, $100,000 Supra that's a lot of money for a Supra. But if it's a 14,000 mile one owner Supra and, it's in perfect shape, color counts a lot, it's black on black, whatever it is, right? How many Supras are really left like that, even though they built a ton of them, right? There may be, only 375 Black Series SLs out there. They may have made 10,000 Supras or 15, 20,000 Supras in a given year range. How many are left that are really like that? So this is all part of the discounted cash flow modeling you have to do in the car world. And at the end of the day, I really believe all of that even is a little bit of nonsense. I think the car world needs to be about passion. It needs to be about what you love. If you love Miatas and you don't care if it's, you own the best one, you want to enjoy it, buy one with 80,000 miles because it's going to run just as good as one with 1,200 miles, right? And enjoy it and drive it and use it up and take it to tracks, take it to Lime Rock, do what you want with it. Or, if you want to be on the other end of the spectrum and buy really interesting stuff and feel safe and confident in it, mileage, ownership, color, condition, provenance, all these things become vital to your decision making in buying a car. So I think it's got to be about what you love and what moves your soul. And if you do that, generally, you're going to do really well in the long run.
Well, you get the experience and it's hard to put a dollar value on that sometimes for sure. So, and one of those things that you can experience with collector cars is a event that you have created coming up here in a few months. The Turtle Invitational. What is the Turtle Invitational? Where is it? How did the idea begin? Tell us about the Turtle Invitational.
So the Turtle Invitational really is an outgrowth of my involvement with the Prey Family Foundation. Malcolm Prey, a very, very revered collector in our industry, died 10 years ago this August. Hard to believe. Anyway, he left behind a really amazing collection, a beautiful building, and a very interesting legacy of helping young kids who are underprivileged, to teach them about entrepreneurialism, to teach them basic rules of the road that they weren't getting at home. Stay in school, don't do drugs, look people in the eye when you shake their hand, character counts. I mean, all these basic things that we all know, but a lot of these kids are missing. Well, I walked out the door of Turtle Garage one day in 2015, and we have so blessed. We have this 130 acre flat rolling meadow farm with stone walls crisscrossing everywhere, 37 miles from Midtown Manhattan. And I walked out my door and I looked at this big meadow and I said, this would be a great place to have a really fun car show. And so I talked to Lily Prey, Malcolm's daughter, and we started thinking more, and we thought, hey, we could do this in honor of Malcolm Prey and the foundation and do an awareness campaign, really. Like we do want to raise money for the foundation, but that's not totally our mission. Our mission is awareness that Malcolm's legacy is still alive, that we're still doing things at the Prey Center in Greenwich. Well, it's Bedford, New York. It's on the border of Bedford and Greenwich. So it's an amazing place. If you all haven't been there, you can go to preyachievementcenter.com and learn more. But we thought, wow, how interesting to do that. So it took 2 years to kind of incubate the idea. And I took a page out of Miles Collier's book. Miles does this Revs Symposium at the Revs Institute in Naples, and he does it every 2 years. But prior to COVID, it was every 2 years. And we decided to do this event every 2 years because it makes it special. There's so many car shows today. There's so many events. The years roll by quicker and quicker. And when you do something every 2 years, it makes it really special, and people get kind of a renewed enthusiasm about that kind of an event. And so we decided that the culture of this event would be very much in the shadow of Malcolm Prey. And Malcolm Prey was a inclusive guy, right? He was an evangelist of success, to share not his success, but the concept of being successful with young people. He loved sharing his cars. He didn't keep them in garage under covers and don't touch that. And no kids could even. What he would do is he'd bring like 30 kids from Harlem to his garage and he'd let them sit in a $6 million Delahaye, right? He loved that kind of stuff. And so the show is the core of the culture of the show. It tries to mimic kind of how Malcolm was. And so what that means is, yes, Peter Sachs brings great cars. Yes, Miles Collier brings great cars. Yes, Sam Lehrman brings amazing cars. I mean, these are the top collectors that go to Pebble. But we also get other things, which are really fun. And that was really, I think, quite out there on display in 2021 when the best Italian car was Peter Sachs's Ferrari TR that Phil Hill won Le Mans with. I mean, priceless car. You can't even put a value on it. He drove it to the show, by the way, which is a whole nother hilarious thing. And people roared and clapped and the band played and everyone was excited. But then the best German car was a 1958 Beetle that Malcolm Prey sold at Morley Motors brand new in 1958 with all the paperwork. They still had it. It was beaten up, patinaed, not beaten up. It was in, good shape, but patinaed. And Faricia Brothers owns the car in Greenwich. And the crowd went wild because everyone loves Beetles. It was real. It was original. It had patina, and then Malcolm sold the car. So we try to kind of blend these two things together where it's not about the value of the cars. It's about the people. It's about the passion. It's about the fun, and it's about being together. And what I would say about the whole collector car thing and the horse thing, we were talking about the similarities and differences. It's all about people, right? I don't think I've ever met more interesting people than I've met through the collector car industry, right? And whether they own a 9,000 mile Gremlin X that was bought in Palm Beach and lovingly cared for by, somebody down there, and then this person owns it and they know everything about the car, or whether someone's got a Pagani Huayra and ordered themselves and bought them and now has 4 of them, right? Like, it's the same thing. It's all the same, and we can all relate to it, as friends and build relationships. So that's what the Turtle Invitational is really all about. If you go to our website, turtleinvitational.com, the way we've defined what the Turtle Invitational is it's a blending of Davos, which is the big, meeting in Davos of all the great thinkers of the current modern era. It's like a French salon in the sense of this artistic, kind of coming together of life and art and happiness and passion. And then it has a little bit of Amelia Island, the old Amelia Island of, 5 or 10 years ago, where it was just this magical place under the palm trees. And then a Chautauqua, which a lot of people don't know what a Chautauqua is, but these were held out in New York State near Buffalo. And there are these, educational months in the summertime where people would live together. They still do them, by the way. And it's all of those 4 things blended together with a really fun dinner Friday night. Here at my garage, we pull out all the cars and put up big long tables, a really fun tour through North Salem and Westchester County with state trooper escort front and rear, dinner at the Prey Foundation Saturday night, totally casual barbecue. Tom Champion flips burgers and everyone has a good time. And then the show is Sunday, followed by a big champagne party at the end of the show. And so it's purposely not called a concourse because it's not. And it's not another boring stop on an already overcrowded car show tour. It's different. And if you ask anyone who's been there, they'll tell you like how special it is. And Matt has been there. A lot of people have been there, and we're filling up this year already. We're selling all our tickets over the internet ahead of the event. We're capping it at 700 tickets and 100 cars. And we're pretty close to getting there already. So we're excited about that.
And we'll certainly leave a link in the video description down below if people want to check that out. So anyway, it's an extensive event. There's a lot going on. So I got to ask, what's been the most unexpected component of throwing something together that's as inclusive and as large as this?
I would say the most unexpected thing is the look on everyone's faces when you walk around. Now, granted, we have been blessed with amazing weather for all 3 Turtles Invitationals. This is Turtle 4. Weather helps a lot, right? Just like in car world, color counts, weather counts for car shows, right? But the happiness of people, it's a day to just drop everything and forget about your career and your difficulties at work and this and that. And I also was surprised how many children have come and how kids love cars. I don't care what everybody says about the car hobby's dying, the industry's dying, kids don't care about cars, they don't want their drivers. It's just not true. We had dozens and dozens of kids come and their just jaws drop when they see that Resto Mod pickup or that Porsche 959 or the Ferrari F40 or, the race cars. We had Paul Newman's, 2 of Paul Newman's Z cars here when we were honoring Bob Sharp as our honoree. That was to me, I think the most rewarding thing was everybody left happy and friendly, and it was like a lot of harmony and happiness and really fun. And Skip Barber's our honoree this year. So Skip's going to be here and it's going to be really, really fun.
Okay, Phillips, you're thoroughly engrossed in this car world from multiple different angles. So why don't you give us one car to buy, one car to sell, and one car to hold in today's marketplace?
Well, let me first give you a disclaimer. I'm partially talking my own book, and I'm doing that because it's what I know. There's so much to know in this industry, and you can't know everything about everything. So I'm partially talking my book. I guess on the buy side, I really believe that the Audi R8 is an undiscovered gem. And I'm talking about the first generation car. And I'm frankly even talking about the 8-cylinder car, which was the way that the Audi envisioned the car from the get-go. And I can speak because I have a V8 R8 and I have a V10 R8 as well. And I can tell you, I'm leaning towards that the 8-cylinder is actually a better car. It's lighter, it's more nimble. But these cars, as I mentioned before, the build quality is incredible. You have to remember where Audi was when this car was developed. Audi was in trouble. They were not competitive with Mercedes and BMW in the late 90s, early 2000s when they started building these Le Mans cars. They had huge success at Le Mans. They decided to build a Halo car. And the difference what Audi did, which other manufacturers like Lexus have missed with the LFA, this Halo car was somewhat attainable. So like if you went out to dinner in 2008 and 9, even in the middle of the financial crisis, at a good restaurant in Greenwich or in Hollywood or wherever, you get a pretty good shot of seeing an R8 up close and in the real, right? Where that doesn't happen with most Halo cars because they're just never meant to be driven. So these R8s, I think from a design standpoint, crushed it. They're 20 years ahead of themselves. The side blade, the overall silhouette, the haunches are not flared, but they're beefy. The headroom ergonomically in the car, the cockpit is dead simple. It's straightforward. The Audi MMI interface is fantastic. They're all aluminum. They're all-wheel drive. They're mid-engined. The V8 sounds like a tiger. It just has a great, great noise to it. I mean, it's really truly a race car for the street, but totally drivable. And the key is, while it did have an automatic kind of, high-tech automatic shifting option, you could get it in a 6-speed gated manual. So it has that kind of Ferrari gated transmission feel. The only difference is the transmission's silky smooth and shifts just beautifully. So I think kind of like many things, the first early iteration, like the Countach Periscopio is like the best Countach, no flares, very bare bones. The R8's the same way. And the great thing is I took it to the Palm Beach Audi dealer this winter, and full service, the whole thing. It was like $350 because it's a 4.2 liter V8 Audi engine that's in an A8, right? I mean, tweaked and tuned and whatever, but it's basically the same engine. And because it's an R8, you could go into a special line, even though the car is like 16 years old. They give you special access at Audi if you drive an R8 or an A8. And so you get like high touch service. So it's a bargain supercar, but it's lovely to drive. It's comfortable. It's fast. And it's super grippy on the road, given the all-wheel drive. So that's my buy.
Yeah, I really like those cars too. And for me, I'm with you 100%. I think the most pure version of that is the first generation car with the V8 engine. I think it feels better on the road. It's more balanced. I think it sounds better. And the beauty for me of that car is it's kind of like where the Acura NSX left off, but then like much, much better. I mean, it's one of those cars that's good at absolutely everything. It's comfortable. It's fairly economical. Yeah. You can drive it long distances without getting torn up. Again, that if you get the gated manual in it, the click that it makes is really satisfying. And then the travel to get there is really smooth and effortless. Those are fabulous cars indeed. And if you think about it, where they're at today in the marketplace, they're really a bargain. I mean, if you're out there in the marketplace looking to buy an R8, V8 car, like what would you expect to pay for one of those?
Well, I think, a lot depends on all the old, regular questions of mileage, condition, and number of owners and provenance. But, you can buy them with, and by the way, an R8, a V8 R10 with miles on it, who cares? Like you drive it, it's going to run, right? This is not a, as Jeremy Clarkson said, it's a supercar that doesn't run on diced lions, right? Like it's a normal car, right? So, if you could find one with 30,000 miles on it, I mean, 08, 09, 10, 30,000 miles in the 68, 78, 88 range. So under $100,000, you are sitting in a car that listed back then at like 115, 118, 130, depending on how it was optioned. I mean, it's a bargain for what it is. And by the way, it also turns a lot of heads. People like it. And the design when it came out was weird, radical. It was Bauhaus. The blade in the middle of the body, like what was that all about? A lot of people had the painted body color, so it looked normal, like a normal car. Today, I mean, the aluminum blade or the carbon fiber blade, I mean, just the incredible design element that no other car had. Nobody. It's complete. When an R8 goes down the road, you don't say, oh, wait, was that a McLaren? Oh, wait, was that a 9? Was that a Cayman? Like, what was? No, it's unequivocally an R8, period, full stop. And that's one of the things I think makes the car great. Besides the driving position, the comfort, the seating, the headroom. It has so much headroom in it. Unbelievable. And, I think, and if you really want to like go another level of value, if you buy the R8 with the automatic, I forget what they call it. It's not the doppelcoupling, but it's the high-tech automatic transmission of that era. They're like a third less than the gated cars, maybe even cheaper. And by the way, the transmission is not terrible, right? It's like, it's not the end of the world. It's not like an Aston Martin Vanquish transmission. It's not like bad. So if you really want to get, a bargain, you buy an R8, get 30,000 miles on it and have it be the automatic transmission. And that's a cheap car for what it is.
Yeah. People go on and on about the 996 being like the ultimate sports car bargain right now, but I beg to differ. I think it's probably the R8. So what are we going to sell?
So we're going to, it's interesting because you just had Wayne on the show, and I'm a huge fan of Wayne Carini. He's been so kind to me in my car world life and inclusive of all the things he does at Monterey and Doty's. Matt and I have been to Doty's with Wayne many, many times in the breakfast. He's great, but I differ with him on his view of the 308, 328 Ferraris, even the 348, which came a little later, the 355, which I think is a beautiful car, stylistically, and even into the 360s. So I'm kind of, I'm not answering your question totally specifically, but these Ferraris that were at the time kind of the lower tier of what was in the offering, these cars have gotten really expensive. And the thing about 308s and the thing about 328s is, I don't know whether they built more Ford Pintos or more 308s. It's probably a toss up, right? Like they built a ton of these cars. Like they are everywhere. So maybe you could argue, okay, well, if it's a 400-mile final year, 1989, 328, non-Targa top, GTS, blah, blah, blah. Okay. That's a big money car. But there's a lot of stuff trading on Bring a Trailer that has miles, has a lot of owners, some colors that are a little wonky, trading for big money. Into the six figures. And I just don't think these cars are worth that for the driving experience they give you. The 308, 328 it's not a fast car. I happen to believe it's the most beautiful Ferrari ever built. I think it's why the GTO, the 288 GTO is so beautiful. It's why the F40 is so beautiful. Those cars are all just derivations of Pininfarina's design of the 308, 328 going back to the Dino, right? So the styling of particularly the 328, the later years where they integrated the grille and the headlights into the front, they're gorgeous. They're drop dead quintessential Ferrari styling. I just think they're too expensive for what they are, period. Yeah. Especially when the middle range cars. And the 360s now gated, they made them gated. Everyone wants a gated car now. They want a 3-pedal car. I get that, but that's another car that I think is just not thrilling. It's not a 12-cylinder. It's not super stylistically incredible. It's meh. And they're going for big money, especially gated ones. So, and there are a lot of them out there, right? People never drove those cars. They made tons of them. Lots of different variants, styles, different options, but they made a lot of them. So that would be my sell.
Yeah, they're not hard to find for sure. And if you think about it, it wasn't that long ago when you could get a fairly decent 308 for like $40,000. Those days are clearly behind it.
$35,000.
Yeah, no doubt. So what are we going to hold?
So we're going to hold the E46 M3. And again, I'm talking my book here. I've had an E46 for a long time. The current car I have, I bought it from Eric Keller. I was visiting Eric Keller at EAG in Cincinnati about 5 years ago, and he made me buy this car. He basically put a gun to my head and said, "You're stupid if you don't buy this car. It's the best one we've ever had. It's carbon black. It's a competition package. Final year. It's a one-owner car. It has 9,000 miles. We've never had a car like this. You need to buy this car. You're an idiot if you don't buy this car." So of course I bought it, and then Eric died. And so I'm very emotionally attached to that car because of what a great person Eric was and how he steered me really right in a lot of decisions I've made. I bought an E30 M3 from him about 12 years ago, and it was, one of the lowest mileage ones he'd ever had. He said, "Look, I'll send you the car. If it's not as good as I'm telling you it is, you can send it right back to me." Well, the car was like 5 times better than he said it was. One owner car, no paintwork, perfection, 15,000 miles. So that's how Eric was. And he and I were we saw eye to eye on quality and patience and attention to detail. And so the E46, but putting all that aside, the E46 is a beautiful car to look at in the garage. Flares, bumped out hood, classic modern BMW pre-Chris Bangle lines. I know Chris Bangle was at BMW at that time, but his real influence later, which by the way, I'm not knocking Chris Bangle, but this was a classic going back to like a 320i and to an E30 window design in the back. This car still harkens back to all those great styling elements. But it's beefy and meaty. The interior is sumptuous. It's the classic BMW cockpit of everything towards the driver. It has the TV screen display with the GPS, which actually works fairly well given that it's a 2006 car. They were pretty ahead of their time. The driving position's amazing. The seats are sumptuous. The leather's great. and it's a 6-speed manual, and it flies. The power to weight ratio of an E46 M3 is maybe the best of any car I've ever driven. They are so fun to drive, and they have a crazy huge following among the youngtimer clan. Youngtimers love E46 M3s. And I think the later cars, the 05s and 06s are what you really want to own, because they really figured it out. Like the E39 M5, they did a lot of iterative changes, and the final year cars are just fantastic. And they're also kind of the end of the road of a quasi-analog car. I mean, yeah, they've got electronics in them, and yeah, they got the screens and whatever. I mean, if your kid got into it today, they might say it's a modern car because it has that stuff. But it's really more an analog car. And so I think that they're always going to have a following because they're the end of the road of something special. And as I mentioned earlier, now we have the M4 with the gaping grill that actually is fantastic because you can take the grill off and use it to grill steak. It's so big, right? Like when you're not driving the car. Like, I don't know what BMW is thinking with styling, but the grill is ridiculous. And the M4, it's bigger than my Packard, right? So like they've lost the whole concept of the M3, which is a nimble 2-door sports sedan based on DTM heritage with the E30. And that's what the E46 has. I think the E46 is the only M3 that's even in striking distance to the E30 in terms of driving experience, styling, build quality, the whole thing. I mean, I think it's actually a buy, I'd even say. But in our case here, it's a hold for sure. It's not a sell. The other thing that's great about this generation M3 is that you could also get it in a convertible. And believe it or not, it's the same story with the Audi R8. If you buy an E46 M3 convertible with the SMG transmission, it is a cheap car, and it has great bones. And maybe you don't like the SMG, but it's not it's not a terrible transmission. BMW wouldn't have created something like that was poor, right? They were at that era of their life cycle of BMW. They were still a pure driver's car, performance car. So the SMG transmission is not terrible. If you bought the convertible, which is hugely cheaper than the coupes, that's an amazing good buy that you can drive every day and really enjoy. So the E46 has this amazing dynamism to it that, you know, all these years they built, I think it's 01 to 06, I think was the production run. Convertibles, coupes, SMG, 6-speed manuals, later models getting improvements. You can get a hardtop on the convertible, makes it look pretty much a silhouette, a factory hardtop of the coupe. There's something there for everybody, and they're pretty damn reliable. People drive these cars. If you look on Bring a Trailer, you'll see a lot of them with a ton of miles, and they run. That motor, the S46, revered by, ask anybody who loves BMWs, that's the motor they want. So that's where I am, Darren.
Yeah, I mean, those check a lot of boxes, definitely. And you're right. They are an end of the era car that should do nothing but go up, 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 and up. So any final thoughts?
Just, I think you guys are doing a great job with buy, sell, hold. I mean, you had some great people on the show. I think Wayne was awesome. If you guys viewers haven't watched Wayne's interview, you should watch it. It's really, really good. And I'm honored to be on the show. I'm honored to be part of the sports car market family. And I'm looking forward to Greenwich this weekend. I'm showing my Packard 12, and I'm showing Bimota Tezzy 1D, a freakishly weird, rare motorcycle that I hope will get some eyeballs at Greenwich on the lawn this weekend. And we're looking forward to the Turtle Invitational, September 23rd and 24th. Please, if you want to come, buy your ticket now at turtleinvitational.com. We're going to be pretty strict on keeping it limited. It's too hard to run an event when you don't know how many people are coming. We had 900 people here in 2021. It was too many people. So we're going to rein it in a little bit, and it'll be fun. So I hope to see you there, Darren. And I'm grateful to be on your show, and you're doing a great job with it.
We appreciate everything you do for sure. So we did cover a lot here today. So let's list off where people can go to learn more.
So Turtle Garage, my blog site is www.turtlegarage.com. My car show, Turtle Invitational, is www.turtleinvitational.com. Hollowbrook Wealth Management, my firm, is hollowbrookllc.com. We publish some very interesting quarterly letters on that site that for those readers who are interested, kind of ties into the collector car world. If you want to think about real assets versus financial assets, we talk a lot about that in our writings, and you can pull those down off our site there and follow us on LinkedIn. We publish a lot of this stuff at Hollowbrook LLC on LinkedIn. I guess the most important one is sportscarmarket.com, right? We all love SCM, and I'm getting ready to go on the SCM 1000. I'm driving Keith's V12 Jaguar, which should be really, really fun with Brad Miller. I'm leaving next week for the SCM 1000. So I got a lot of car stuff coming up.
Good stuff indeed. It's good to stay busy, and we'll link all that stuff again in the video description down below. I would like to thank Philip Richter for joining us today. To learn more about anything that we discussed here, be sure to pick up the latest issue of Sports Car Market Magazine by visiting the link in the video description down below. As a reminder, if you enjoyed this content, please take a moment to like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay on top of future episodes. I'm Darren Roberge, and thank you for joining us on the Buy, Sell, Hold Spotlight.